You are not the woman they try to define. You are not the version of yourself that broke. You are the silence that still breathes after the storm has passed. But here's the question. When did you forget that you are royalty? When did you start doubting your crown just because someone else couldn't see it? When did you start believing that your softness made you weak? Stay with me, because when you finish watching this, you'll remember what you've always known deep down, that you are a queen, not by title, but by essence. And it's time you start acting like one. The forgotten throne. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks around and realizes somewhere along the way, she stepped off her throne. Not because she was weak, not because she wasn't capable, but because she was tired. Tired of fighting battles that were never hers to fight. Tired of explaining her heart to those who only came to misunderstand it. Tired of trying to prove her worth to those who could never see past their own blindness. You see, life doesn't always take your crown with force. Sometimes it simply distracts you until you set it down yourself. You start saying yes when your spirit screams no. You smile when your soul is aching. You silence your truth just to keep the peace. And piece by piece, you begin to forget who you are. But the throne never disappears. It waits in the stillness, beneath all the noise. It waits behind the woman you pretend to be, calling you softly back to yourself. It doesn't ask you to fight for it, only to remember it. Because a throne is not a place of control, it's a place of presence. It's not where you rule over others, but where you rule over your own emotions, your thoughts, your reactions, your peace. And when you sit back upon it, not in arrogance but in awareness, you realize that everything you were chasing, every approval you were craving, was only a reflection of what you had forgotten within. There's power in remembering, power in knowing that your worth doesn't rise or fall with who accepts you or who rejects you. A queen does not compete for attention. She creates her own gravity. The world moves differently around a woman who knows who she is. But here's the truth. Returning to your throne requires solitude. You will have to walk alone for a while. You will have to let silence rebuild what chaos once broke. And you will have to face the uncomfortable truth that some people loved you more when you were small, when your light was dim enough not to outshine theirs. The forgotten throne isn't found in the crowd. It's rediscovered in the stillness of your own heart. And when you sit back upon it, you'll feel the world shift, not because it has changed, but because you finally have. The moment you reclaim your throne, life begins to mirror your new posture. People start treating you according to the energy you now embody. You'll notice how the same words sound different when spoken from your seat of power. You'll stop chasing validation because you'll realize that being you is already more than enough. Remember this. Your throne is not a destination, it's a state of being. And once you sit upon it, nothing external can remove you, unless you stand up and walk away again. So as you rise, as you breathe, as you look at the mirror before you tonight, ask yourself gently, have I abandoned my throne, or have I just forgotten where it stands? Because the moment you ask that question sincerely, something deep within you begins to awaken. And that awakening brings you to the mirror, the place where remembering truly begins. Because what if the throne you're searching for is hidden in the reflection staring back at you? 2. The mirror of doubt. When you stand before a mirror, what do you really see? Most people only notice their reflection, but the mirror doesn't lie. It simply reveals the truth of what you've come to believe about yourself. If you look into it and feel small, it's not the mirror that shrinks you. It's the story you've been telling yourself. If you look into it and feel unworthy, the mirror isn't cruel, it's honest. It reflects back not your appearance, but your perception. And that's where many lose their way. Because when life bruises you, when rejection wounds your spirit, when disappointment breaks your rhythm, you start to mistake the reflection for the reality. You start believing that you are the pain, instead of understanding that pain is only passing through. But what if the mirror wasn't your enemy? What if it was your greatest teacher? A queen doesn't fight her reflection. She studies it. She asks, why do I see lack where there is abundance? Why do I fear rejection when I am love itself? Why do I apologize for shining? Doubt is not your destroyer. It's your invitation to deeper awareness. It arrives not to cripple you, but to cleanse you, to strip away every illusion that keeps you from seeing yourself clearly. Every time you question your strength, life gives you a mirror moment, an opportunity to confront the woman you've become versus the woman you are meant to be. And in that confrontation, something sacred happens. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you begin to remember the truth you buried beneath years of self-doubt and compromise. The mirror will never flatter you, it will never deceive you. It shows you both your power and your pain side by side, so you can learn to love them both. Because a queen doesn't hide her flaws, she integrates them. She wears her imperfections as evidence of evolution. Each scar becomes a verse in her story, each wrinkle a symbol of her wisdom. When you finally stop fearing your reflection, you begin to heal. You start to look at the woman staring back at you, not with judgment, but with compassion. You whisper to her softly, I know you've been through so much, but you're still here, you're still standing, you're still worthy. And in that whisper, doubt begins to dissolve, because truth always speaks more powerfully than fear. Your reflection is not your punishment, it's your proof. Proof that you have faced yourself and refused to look away. Proof that despite the cracks, you still hold light. Proof that you are not broken, you are becoming. And the more you face that reflection, the more you begin to rise into it, until one day, you no longer see just a woman. You see a queen who survived her own shadow, a woman who no longer begs for light because she finally remembers that she is light. And when that light begins to shine, it doesn't roar, it radiates quietly, like still water, holding the reflection of the moon. 3. The power of stillness. Stillness. It is not the absence of movement, it is the mastery of motion. The world will tell you to be louder, faster, busier, to constantly prove your worth. But true power has nothing to prove. It doesn't rush, it doesn't compete, it simply is. Stillness is the state of a soul that has remembered its sovereignty. It's the deep breath you take before reacting. It's the space between words, the silence between thoughts, the calm that follows understanding. A queen is not measured by how much she can control, but by how deeply she can remain grounded when everything around her seeks to shake her. Stillness is not passivity, it's precision. It's choosing not to waste energy on battles beneath your dignity. Because when you are still, you begin to see, you start to discern the truth beneath the noise. You realize that not every invitation requires your presence, not every argument deserves your answer, not every opinion needs your correction. In stillness, you rediscover discernment, and the world notices. They can feel the difference between a woman who reacts and a woman who responds, between a woman who speaks from insecurity and one who speaks from peace. Stillness transforms you into a force, quiet, yet unmistakable. But here's the paradox. Stillness must be practiced in motion. You cannot wait for the world to stop to find peace. You must learn to be still within the storm, because storms will come. And when they do, your calm will be your power. Your peace will be your protection. Your silence will speak louder than any defense. To be still is to be sovereign, to walk through fire without losing your grace, to be tested and yet remain unshaken. That is the energy of a woman who has remembered her crown. So breathe, slow down, let the noise of the world fade into the background. For in stillness you will hear the only voice that truly matters, the one within, because the throne you reclaimed in silence, the reflection you healed in the mirror, they both lead you here, to this sacred space of calm power, where peace and purpose meet. And from that stillness, something extraordinary begins to awaken. Not just power, but purpose. A calling that whispers, now that you remember who you are, what will you do with it? 4. The lesson of pain. Pain has a way of arriving uninvited, and yet it always carries a sacred purpose. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to dismantle the illusions that have kept you small. It enters softly through heartbreak, disappointment, or betrayal. And before you realize it, pain becomes both the teacher and the mirror. You see, pain is not cruel, it's precise. It goes straight to the wound that you've avoided for years. It exposes the corners of your soul that you kept hidden, even from yourself. It shakes the very foundation of your comfort, so that what's false may finally fall away. Most of us resist it. We try to silence it with distraction, with denial, with endless motion. But pain is patient. It will whisper until it must roar, because pain is the guardian of transformation. It will not leave until it has taught you what you came here to learn. When a queen walks through pain, she does not collapse under its weight. She listens, she leans in, she lets it burn away everything that is not truth. And though it may hurt, she trusts that every tear has meaning. Every disappointment, every heartbreak, every moment she thought would end her was really preparing her. Pain does not steal your power. It reveals it. It strips you of pretense, of ego, of dependence on things outside of yourself. It takes away the noise so you can hear the quiet strength that's been there all along. And that is the paradox of pain. It feels like breaking, but it's really becoming. It feels like loss, but it's actually a return to the version of yourself that exists beyond fear, beyond pleasing, beyond the expectations of others. When you can look at your pain and say, "Thank you for teaching me," you have mastered one of life's greatest lessons. Because pain will shape you, refine you, and awaken you to a depth of wisdom that peace alone could never have taught. You will rise from it, not bitter, but better, not broken, but beautifully reassembled. And when you rise, you'll realize something powerful. You no longer react from your wounds. You respond from your wisdom. You no longer seek to escape pain. You understand it, hold it, and let it guide you home. So don't curse your pain. Bless it, for it is not the end of your story. It's the fire that forges your crown. And just when you think the flames are too much to bear, you'll notice something unexpected. A peace beginning to form, not from avoidance, but from acceptance. Because when the fire calms, what remains is something divine, the quiet freedom of detachment. 5. The art of detachment. Detachment is not indifference, it's inner mastery. It is the art of caring deeply without clinging, of loving fully without losing yourself, of showing up completely, and yet knowing when it's time to walk away. For too long, many confuse detachment with coldness. But detachment is warmth under control. It's the discipline of keeping your peace sacred, even when everything around you begs for reaction. A queen learns that she cannot carry everything and everyone with her. There comes a season when she must travel lighter, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, not because she has stopped loving, but because she has learned that love cannot flourish in captivity. When you detach, you begin to understand that you are not here to fix people. You are here to understand yourself through them. Every connection is a lesson. Every goodbye is a reminder that not everything is meant to last, but everything is meant to shape. You begin to observe life like a river, flowing, changing, never still. And you stop trying to control its current, because you realize that true power lies not in holding on, but in letting things be what they are meant to be. Detachment frees you from the exhausting need to be understood by everyone. You no longer chase validation. You no longer fight to prove your worth. You simply are, and that being carries more strength than any performance ever could. When you master detachment, you discover the serenity that comes from acceptance. You begin to see that people's behavior is a reflection of their state, not your value. You stop taking things personally because you understand that others can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. There is such elegance in that awareness, a calmness that doesn't need explanation. You respond less, observe more. You forgive, but you don't reopen the door. You speak less, but your silence becomes your statement. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by your feelings. You still care, but from a higher place. You still love, but with boundaries. You still hope, but without desperation, because desperation is the absence of faith. And when you are truly detached, you trust that what belongs to you will never require you to beg for it. It will stay effortlessly, naturally, peacefully. And when something leaves, you let it go without resentment, knowing that the same hand that took it away is also guiding you towards something greater. You don't lose in detachment. You transcend. And when you rise into that calm, untouchable energy, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And instead whisper, what is this teaching me? That's when life begins to unfold differently, because detachment clears the space that chaos once occupied. It opens room for peace, for purpose, and for people who align with your higher vibration. And as your world becomes quieter, you begin to see clearly who truly deserves a place in it. Because not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some are only there to show you who you've become. And when you finally master the art of letting go, you begin to see what truly remains: the sacred company of peace and presence. 6. The company you keep. Every soul that walks beside you leaves an imprint. Some come to bless you, others to test you, but all come to teach you. The company you keep is the echo of what you believe about yourself. It is the reflection of your boundaries, your energy, and your self-worth. For too long, many have kept company with chaos, calling it love. They've confused comfort with connection and tolerance with loyalty. But when you awaken, when you truly start remembering your worth, you begin to see that not everyone can walk with you into your new season. A queen protects her space as she would her kingdom, because she knows not every visitor comes in peace. Some come to drain your energy, some to distract you, and some to remind you of a version of yourself you've already outgrown. And this is where discernment becomes your crown. You start to notice how certain people make you feel heavy after every conversation, while others make your soul breathe again. The difference is energy, and energy doesn't lie. As you grow, your vibration changes, and so does your circle. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. You no longer resonate with gossip, with negativity, with people who only understand you through your wounds. You crave truth, peace, and purpose-driven connections. And when you start choosing your company wisely, your whole world transforms. Suddenly, silence feels better than forced conversations. Solitude feels lighter than false companionship. And you stop apologizing for needing peace. Because peace is not a luxury, it's your responsibility. Protecting your peace is how you protect your destiny. A queen knows that she cannot invite confusion into her atmosphere and still expect clarity, so she chooses carefully whom she allows into her sacred space. She understands that her energy is her offering, and not everyone deserves to receive it. This doesn't mean you close your heart. It means you guard it with wisdom. You learn to love people from a distance if necessary. You learn that forgiveness and access are two different things, and you learn that loyalty means nothing without respect. As you refine your circle, something magical happens. You begin to rise higher, move clearer, speak truer, because the noise that once surrounded you fades into the background. And in that silence, you hear your own intuition guiding you. You realize that you don't need a crowd, you only need truth. And the moment you honor that truth, you become unshakable. For the company you keep is not just about others, it's about the energy you keep within yourself. It's about surrounding your soul with love, with patience, with gratitude, with light. And when you do that, the right people, those who recognize your worth without explanation, will find you effortlessly. They will not compete with your light, they will amplify it. They will not drain you, they will pour into you. They will not fear your crown, they will remind you to wear it with grace. And when those souls arrive, you will realize that protecting your peace was never isolation, it was preparation. Because when peace becomes your foundation, everything built upon it will last, and everything not meant for you will fall away with with ease. 7. The crown of discipline. There's a quiet strength that never needs to be announced. It's the discipline to show up for yourself, even when no one is watching. The discipline to rise early, to stay committed, to move forward. Not because anyone expects it of you, but because you made a sacred promise to yourself: I will not abandon my potential. Discipline is not about punishment, it's about devotion. It's the language of self-respect. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, to stay consistent, to speak kindly, to grow intentionally, you're telling your spirit, I'm worthy of my own trust. There's something profoundly powerful about that kind of commitment, because when you can trust yourself, the world cannot easily shake you. You no longer need validation to feel strong. You no longer rely on others to remind you of your value. You become your own source of stability, the ground beneath your own feet. Many people crave success but resist discipline. They pray for growth, yet run from structure. But growth without discipline is like a seed without soil. It cannot root, it cannot rise. A queen understands this. She moves with intention. She honors her routines, not out of rigidity, but out of reverence. Her discipline is an act of self-love, a declaration that her dreams deserve consistency. She doesn't wait for motivation, because she knows motivation is fleeting. Instead, she builds momentum through small, faithful actions. Discipline becomes her rhythm, her quiet power, her invisible armor. And though it may look ordinary from the outside, something divine happens on the inside. Discipline trains not just the body, but the spirit. It silences the noise of laziness, fear, and self-doubt. It reminds you that you are not at the mercy of your moods. You are the master of your energy. Every habit you form becomes a brick in the foundation of your sovereignty. And as that foundation strengthens, your life begins to reflect it. Opportunities flow more naturally. Peace becomes easier to maintain, and your focus sharpens into clarity. Because discipline doesn't just change what you do, it transforms who you are becoming. It's the sacred art of alignment between what you say, what you believe, and how you move through the world. And this is where true power lies. Not in the moments of applause, but in the hours of silence where you keep choosing growth. You learn to walk the talk, to move with grace, to trust the process. Even when results haven't yet appeared, that is the quiet dignity of a queen who wears her discipline as her crown. Because once discipline roots your spirit, something even more beautiful begins to bloom. The radiant energy of grace. 8. The energy of grace. Grace is the fragrance of strength that doesn't need to shout. It's the calm presence that remains soft even after being hurt. It's the strength that bends but doesn't break. The love that gives without losing itself. There's an elegance in grace, not in how you move, but in how you choose to stay kind in a world that has been unkind. Grace is not weakness, it's divine restraint. It's having the power to destroy and yet choosing to rebuild. You can feel grace in the way a woman carries herself after heartbreak, how she smiles again, not because she's forgotten, but because she's forgiven. Grace is the bridge between pain and peace, between the lesson and the liberation. When you walk with grace, you no longer need to prove your worth. You no longer chase closure from others. You give it to yourself. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because peace is too sacred to be surrendered to bitterness. Grace allows you to release what is heavy without resentment. It teaches you that not everything needs to be explained, not every truth needs to be defended, and not every wound needs to be reopened for healing to happen. A queen knows how to respond to conflict without losing her composure. She can sit in the presence of tension and remain anchored in her peace, because grace is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about knowing that even if it isn't, you will be. When you walk in grace, you move differently. Your silence becomes your strength. Your gentleness becomes your revolution. Your peace becomes your presence. Grace transforms your energy. It softens your edges without dimming your power. It lets you live from love, not fear, from abundance, not lack. And soon you realize, grace is not something you perform, it's something you become. It flows from self-awareness, from the quiet trust that life will always align what is meant for you. But grace doesn't come without struggle. It is often born through heartbreak, disappointment, and surrender. You learn grace when life doesn't go your way, when you have every reason to become bitter but choose to become better. Instead, grace is the crown you earn in the process of learning how to stay soft in a hard world. And the more you cultivate it, the more magnetic your spirit becomes. For grace doesn't seek attention, it commands respect through serenity. It whispers, I can hold peace in the same hands that once held pain. And once you've mastered that calm strength, you discover another kind of power, the courage to say no. 9. The wisdom of saying no. There comes a moment when your healing demands that you start saying no. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started honoring your peace. No is not rejection, it's redirection. It's the sacred act of choosing yourself when the world demands that you give yourself away. For too long, many have equated no with guilt. They fear that boundaries make them selfish. But the truth is, boundaries make you safe. They are the walls that protect your energy, your dreams, your emotional home. A queen understands that no is a complete sentence. It needs no apology, no justification, no explanation. Because every no spoken from truth becomes a doorway to your next level of freedom. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you say yes to something greater. Your peace, your growth, your purpose. The wisdom of no is knowing that not everything good is meant for you and not everyone meant for you will be good for your soul. You begin to realize that energy exchange is sacred, that your time is not infinite and your attention is not cheap. And so you start guarding your presence like a treasure. Saying no doesn't close doors, it filters them. It reveals who truly respects your space and who only values your availability. Because those who are meant to walk with you will never be threatened by your boundaries. They will honor them. When you start to say no from a place of wisdom, life becomes lighter. You no longer move out of obligation, but out of alignment. You no longer carry guilt for protecting your peace. You realize that you are not responsible for how others feel about your boundaries. You are only responsible for maintaining them with love. And in that realization, something powerful awakens. Your energy becomes focused, your spirit becomes calm, and your purpose becomes clear. Because no is not resistance, it's refinement. It refines your circle, your habits, your focus. It removes distractions so your destiny can finally find space to unfold. You start to notice how peace follows every honest no, how your mind becomes quiet when your boundaries are firm, how your confidence grows when you stand by your own truth. And that's when you realize no is not the end. It's the beginning of self-respect, self-trust, and self-leadership. For every time you say no to something lesser, you are saying yes to your throne, yes to your peace, yes to the life that reflects your true worth. And that's the beauty of it. The more you honor your boundaries, the more life honors you. Because when you finally learn to say no with strength, you create space for something sacred to rise, the rebirth of your inner kingdom. 10. The rebirth of your inner kingdom. There comes a moment in every journey when destruction and creation meet, when something within you must die so that something greater may be born. The rebirth of your inner kingdom does not happen in loud declarations or dramatic transformations. It happens quietly, in the stillness between endings and beginnings. It happens when you finally stop running from your truth and decide to stand in it, fully, unapologetically, divinely. Rebirth begins in surrender. It is not the act of becoming someone new, but the remembrance of who you've always been beneath the noise, the masks, and the fear. It's the moment your soul whispers, I'm ready to come home. You've walked through storms that were not meant to destroy you, but to wash away what no longer belonged. Every disappointment, every heartbreak, every detour, all of it has been refining you, chiseling away the illusions that once kept you small. You thought life was breaking you, but it was birthing you. When the ashes settle, you begin to see differently. You realize that everything you lost was teaching you how to rise without it. You start to build your life from peace, not pain, from wisdom, not wounds. And suddenly, you no longer crave validation. You crave alignment. You no longer chase people. You attract energy that mirrors your healing. Rebirth requires courage because it asks you to let go of identities that once made you feel safe. It asks you to trust the unknown, to walk in faith, to become the architect of your own light. But within that surrender lies freedom. The freedom to rebuild your inner kingdom with new laws, new energy, new boundaries. You start to protect your peace as your sacred land. You guard your mind as your royal court. You treat your heart as your throne. Not everyone gets access, and not every visitor deserves to stay. And from that place, your kingdom begins to flourish. Because when your inner world becomes whole, your outer world begins to reflect it. Peace becomes your currency. Stillness becomes your strength. Love becomes your leadership. Rebirth is not about becoming unbreakable, it's about becoming unshakable. You learn to bend without losing yourself, to fall without fear, to rise without resentment. You realize that the power you were searching for was never out there. It was always waiting for you to return home to yourself. And when you do, life starts to meet you with the same energy you finally embody. Clarity, balance, and grace. The crown of your rebirth isn't something you wear, it's something you become. Because once your kingdom stands again, something deeper begins to whisper. The sacred power of choosing peace over control. 11. The sacred power of choosing peace. Peace is not the absence of chaos. It's the decision to remain calm in the midst of it. It's the inner knowing that no matter what happens outside of you, there is a place within you that cannot be touched. Choosing peace is one of the most radical acts of power in a world addicted to reaction. It's choosing presence over pressure, stillness over struggle, clarity over confusion. It's when you stop fighting the current and start flowing with divine timing. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion requires your defense. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Peace teaches you that silence can be stronger than explanation, and walking away can be wiser than winning. When you start valuing peace, your life begins to rearrange itself. People who thrive on chaos start to fall away. Conversations that drain your soul stop finding you. Even your desires begin to shift. You no longer want what looks good, you want what feels true. Choosing peace doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what isn't yours. You let life unfold without forcing outcomes. You learn to trust that what is meant for you will never need you to beg or chase. Peace is powerful because it's rooted in surrender. And surrender is not giving up. It's giving over. It's handing your fears to faith and saying, I trust the timing of my life. When you choose peace, you stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. You stop trying to control others and start mastering yourself. You realize that real strength is not in holding tighter, it's in letting go gracefully. Every time you choose peace, you reclaim your energy from what does not serve you. You stop feeding the fires that burn your spirit. You no longer allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. Peace becomes your rhythm, your posture, your quiet revolution, and soon you begin to attract people and experiences that match that frequency, because the universe always echoes the energy you embody. Peace turns chaos into clarity, pain into purpose, confusion into direction. It becomes your sacred filter, allowing only what is meant to build you to remain. And from this deep calm, something extraordinary begins to awaken, a new level of inner wisdom. one that sees beyond appearances and understands the unseen patterns of life. Cliffhanger, for when peace becomes your foundation, your spirit becomes still enough to hear life's whispers. The voice of your higher wisdom calling you home. 12. The voice of higher wisdom. There is a voice that speaks beneath the noise, a whisper that doesn't shout, yet always knows. It's the voice that doesn't argue or compete, but simply feels true. This is your higher wisdom, the silent knowing that lives within you. It's not logical, yet it's always precise. It's the feeling that says, this is right for me, even when others don't understand. It's the inner compass that points toward peace, truth, and alignment. You begin to hear this voice only when you are still enough to listen. When the world gets quiet, when the distractions fade, when you stop seeking answers outside and turn inward, that's when the whisper becomes clear. It speaks in gentle nudges, in intuition, in sudden clarity. It doesn't shout commands, it simply reminds you of what you already know. Because this wisdom isn't new, it's ancient. It's the memory of your soul, reminding you of your path. But we often silence it with fear. We doubt its guidance because it rarely aligns with comfort. Yet the truth is, your higher wisdom doesn't lead you where it's easy, it leads you where it's necessary. It pulls you toward growth, even when growth feels like loss. It guides you toward alignment, even when alignment demands solitude. It whispers wait when your ego screams hurry. And if you trust it long enough, it will lead you home to yourself. The voice of higher wisdom doesn't promise a life without pain, it promises a life with purpose. It reminds you that every challenge is an initiation, every detour a divine redirection. When you follow this voice, life begins to flow differently. Decisions become lighter, timing becomes clearer, and even in uncertainty you feel guided. You no longer chase outcomes. You align with purpose. You no longer fear endings. You trust beginnings. And the most profound truth of all is this: your higher wisdom has never left you. It was speaking even in your darkest hours. It was whispering through your heartbreaks. It was guiding you even when you couldn't see the way. You realize that every delay had a reason. Every heartbreak had a teaching. Every no was protection, disguised as rejection. When you start living from that awareness, peace becomes your constant state. You begin to move through life not with control, but with clarity. You no longer resist what is. You rise within it. Because wisdom doesn't make you perfect. It makes you present. It teaches you to see through illusions, to love without attachment, and to walk through uncertainty with trust instead of tension. The voice of higher wisdom is not a stranger. It's your truest self, waiting to be remembered. And once you learn to live guided by it, you stop seeking signs. You become one. For when your life begins to flow in harmony with that inner knowing, you no longer chase destiny, you embody it. 13. The art of divine detachment. There is a kind of strength that does not roar. It does not fight or shout to be seen. It simply stands, calm, anchored, and untouchable. In the center of life's storms, that strength is born from divine detachment. Divine detachment is not coldness, it is not indifference, it is the gentle art of being fully present without becoming imprisoned by outcomes. It's learning to love deeply, yet never lose yourself in the process. It's being involved with life but never enslaved by it. When you practice divine detachment, you begin to understand that peace and control do not coexist. You can either try to control everything and exhaust your soul, or you can trust the unfolding and finally breathe again. Because nothing drains the spirit more than trying to force timing that isn't meant to arrive yet. The moment you detach, life starts to breathe for you. Suddenly, the weight you've been carrying begins to dissolve, and you realize that your peace never depended on external perfection. It depended on your willingness to release what you cannot control. This is not easy, because the mind loves attachment. It clings to people, expectations, identities, outcomes. Not because it is evil, but because it fears uncertainty. It believes that holding tighter will bring safety, when in truth, it only creates suffering. Divine detachment invites you to loosen your grip. It whispers, you can love without holding, you can care without carrying, you can give without losing. It teaches you that what is meant for you will never require you to chase. And so, you begin to surrender. You stop fighting to make people understand your worth. You stop over-explaining your truth to those committed to misunderstanding it. You stop chasing validation from a world that doesn't even know how to validate itself. Instead, you become still, and in that stillness, you regain your power. You begin to see clearly which connections feed your soul and which deplete it. You learn to walk away, not in bitterness, but in blessing. You realize that peace is not found in holding everything together, but in letting what no longer belongs fall away gracefully. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop drowning in every wave. It means you can observe your emotions without becoming consumed by them. You can experience pain without labeling it punishment. You can witness endings without fearing loss. When you live from divine detachment, love becomes purer. You love without demand. You give without calculation. You stay not because you're afraid to leave, but because peace lives there. And as you release what was never truly yours, you begin to reclaim what always was. Your serenity, your clarity, your freedom. Because the truth is, what you release returns in higher form. What you let go of from faith comes back in alignment. And what you no longer cling to has room to evolve. For once you master the art of detachment, something extraordinary happens. You begin to walk through endings not with fear, but with grace. 14. Walking through endings with grace. Every ending carries its own kind of sacred silence. It is the moment between exhale and inhale, the space where something within you finishes its story and another version of you begins to rise. Most of us fear endings because they taste like loss. They remind us of absence, of things we can't go back to. But what if endings are not punishments? What if they are gentle invitations, a divine signal that something has fulfilled its purpose in your life? Walking through endings with grace is not about pretending you're not hurting. It's about holding pain with presence. It's about saying, yes, this hurts, but I choose to walk forward anyway. Grace is not denial, it's dignity. It's choosing not to become bitter when you could be broken. It's choosing to bless what left instead of cursing what ended. Because you understand now, endings are not evidence of failure. They are proof of growth. Everything you've outgrown had to dissolve so that space could open for what's next. The doors that closed were not rejection. They were redirection. The people who left were not punishment. They were completion. When you walk through endings with grace, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You no longer resist the chapter's closure, because you trust that the author of your life never writes without meaning. There is an elegance in acceptance. It's not passive, it's powerful. It's when you stop fighting reality and start cooperating with destiny. It's when you can say, I release this not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered enough to change me. Walking through endings with grace doesn't mean you forget. It means you remember without resentment. It means you look back and see growth instead of grief. It means your heart stays open, even when it's healing. Because what grace does is transform your wounds into wisdom. It turns pain into power. It turns goodbye into gratitude. And in that moment, you realize endings are not the end of your story, they are the beginning of your becoming. The flower doesn't grieve the petals it sheds. It trusts a cycle that will bring new blooms. So too must you learn to trust the divine rhythm of release. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You stop waiting for closure from others and you start creating closure within yourself. You become your own peace. You become your own soft landing. You become your own continuation. Because once you learn to walk through endings with grace, you awaken a power far greater. The power of becoming your own healer. 15. Becoming your own healer. There comes a time when the waiting must end. A time when you stop looking to others to fix what only you can face. Healing, real healing, begins the moment you take responsibility for your own soul. To become your own healer is to sit with yourself in truth. It's to hold your wounds with compassion, not judgment. It's to stop escaping through distractions and start listening to the quiet ache that has been calling for your attention. You see, healing doesn't happen because time passes. Healing happens because you choose to face what time tried to hide. It happens when you let your emotions breathe instead of burying them. When you say, I am ready to feel this, to understand this, to release this. Becoming your own healer doesn't mean you no longer hurt. It means you no longer hand your power to the pain. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop needing validation to know your worth. You stop replaying stories that keep your soul small. You begin to nurture yourself like someone you finally love. You speak gently to your scars. You choose stillness instead of self-punishment. You understand that healing is not a destination. It's a daily devotion. To heal yourself is to reclaim your energy from the past. It is remembering that you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. The process is not linear. There are days you will feel strong and days you will ache again. But each time you choose love over bitterness, each time you choose peace over revenge, you heal another layer of your being. Healing asks for honesty, the courage to admit where you are still bleeding, but it also asks for hope, the faith that even broken things can bloom again. And when you finally start to trust that process, you realize healing was never about returning to who you were. It was about becoming who you were meant to be all along. The woman who has faced herself is powerful beyond measure. She no longer fears solitude because she has met her own soul there. She no longer chases love because she has found it within. She no longer hides her light because she understands her light is the healing. When you become your own healer, you begin to vibrate differently. You speak differently, move differently, choose differently. You attract peace because you embody it. You inspire others, not by your perfection, but by your presence. You realize the greatest medicine is truth. And the greatest truth is this: you were never broken. You were becoming. For once healing becomes your way of being, you step into your highest evolution, where wholeness becomes your new normal. 16. The majesty of stillness is a kind of power that doesn't come from movement, but from stillness. It is the power that lives in silence, the kind that does not shout to be heard, yet commands the entire room. When a woman begins to embrace stillness, she starts to touch the deepest part of her essence, the calm before creation, the pause before purpose unfolds. Stillness is not absence. It is presence in its purest form. It is the place where the noise of the world finally fades and the voice of your own soul begins to rise. You see, when you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop proving, you start becoming. The world teaches you to be in constant motion, to do, to achieve, to compete. But the divine calls you to be still, to sit long enough to feel the whispers of your intuition, to breathe deeply enough to remember that peace was never lost, only forgotten. The majesty of stillness lies in the way it refines your perception. When you stop reacting, you begin to see. You see who truly values you when you're no longer useful to them. You see where your energy was leaking through endless striving. You see how much beauty exists in the moments you once overlooked. The sound of your breath, the weight of your heartbeat, the quiet joy of simply being alive. Stillness is where strength is restored. Because in stillness, you are not trying to be strong. You remember that you already are. It is the sacred space where healing finishes its work and wisdom begins its whisper. It teaches you that not every situation needs your reaction. Not every challenge requires resistance. Sometimes power means allowing things to unfold while you remain grounded in truth. In stillness, your discernment sharpens. You begin to sense which battles are yours to fight and which are not. You no longer move from impulse. You move from insight. You no longer respond to fear. You respond from faith. And something beautiful happens. You stop being controlled by the pace of the world. You realize that you can move slowly and still arrive on time. Because divine timing is never in a rush. Stillness does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. It teaches you the language of the unseen, the subtle shifts in energy, the quiet guidance of intuition, the rhythm of your own becoming. When you learn to sit in stillness, you no longer seek validation from noise. You no longer crave distractions. You begin to enjoy your own company because you are finally at home in your soul. And from that place of quiet power, your next season begins to unfold. Not from effort, but from alignment. Not from panic, but from peace. For once you've mastered stillness, you discover the deeper art, the ability to protect that peace no matter what surrounds you. Peace, the art of protecting your peace. Peace is a delicate garden, and not everyone deserves to walk through it. It takes years to cultivate, moments to lose, and a lifetime to guard. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. Because when your peace is gone, your clarity fades, your intuition dims, and your energy leaks into the hands of chaos. The art of protecting your peace begins with awareness. The awareness of what disturbs your spirit and what nourishes it. It's noticing how you feel after every conversation, every interaction, every environment. Because peace is not something you find by accident. It's something you choose by intention. You protect your peace by saying no, not from anger, but from wisdom. You set boundaries, not to keep love out, but to keep yourself whole. You walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Peace is fragile. In a world addicted to drama, people will test your limits, provoke your reactions, drain your compassion. But when you learn the art of protecting your peace, you stop participating in what disturbs your soul. You no longer attend every argument you're invited to. You no longer explain yourself to minds that aren't open to understanding. You simply withdraw your energy from what no longer aligns. You begin to realize your peace is not a prize others earn. It is a state of being that you maintain through daily discipline. It is your responsibility to yourself. Protecting your peace also means protecting your space. Not everyone deserves access to your presence. Not everyone can handle your energy with care. So you begin to curate your surroundings, like a queen curates her court. With discernment, with wisdom, with purpose, you learn to be selective, not from pride, but from preservation. Because when you give your energy away too freely, you leave nothing for the moments that truly matter. To protect your peace, you must also guard your thoughts. Because what you focus on expands. The more you replay pain, the more pain multiplies. The more you meditate on gratitude, the more abundance flows. Peace is sustained by what you feed your mind. And slowly, you start to build an inner sanctuary, a place that chaos cannot enter, a silence that cannot be shaken. You realize that protecting your peace doesn't mean living without challenges. It means facing them without losing yourself. Your peace becomes your compass. You begin to recognize, if it costs your peace, it's too expensive. If it steals your joy, it's not meant for you. If it confuses your spirit, it's not aligned with your growth. The more you protect your peace, the more powerful you become. Because peace gives you clarity. Clarity gives you focus. Focus gives you strength. And soon you find that you are no longer reacting to life. You are responding from your center. You are no longer controlled by circumstances. You are guided by your calm. But once your peace is protected, something even more profound begins. The awakening of your divine purpose. Waiting patiently beneath your stillness. 18. The awakening of divine purpose. There comes a moment, quiet yet undeniable, when you realize that everything you have walked through was preparing you for something greater. Every storm, every silence, every surrender was shaping the strength of your spirit. That moment is the awakening of divine purpose. Divine purpose is not about titles or applause. It's not about being seen. It's about seeing clearly. It's when you begin to understand that your journey was never random, that every detour carried a direction and every delay carried a lesson. Purpose is not something you chase. It's something you remember. It's the voice that whispers, you were meant for more than survival. It's the fire that reignites when you stop living by others' expectations and start listening to your own soul's instructions. When divine purpose awakens, your pain starts to make sense. You begin to see that the things that once broke you were actually breaking open the deeper parts of you. They were making space for compassion, for courage, for clarity. You realize you were never lost. You were being led. Every closed door redirected you. Every heartbreak humbled you. Every fall strengthened you. And now, as you stand in awareness, you understand that the path wasn't punishing you. It was preparing you. Divine purpose does not rush. It doesn't scream for attention. It unfolds in perfect rhythm, guided by your willingness to align. You begin to live intentionally, not to impress but to impact, not to be seen but to serve. You start to move through life with a sacred awareness that every moment is a chance to embody the grace you've learned, to reflect the light you've discovered, to walk as the healed version of the woman you've become. Purpose changes how you love. You no longer seek relationships that entertain you. You seek ones that evolve you. You no longer chase opportunities that flatter your ego. You follow ones that fulfill your calling. Your why becomes bigger than your wounds. Your vision becomes stronger than your fears. And soon everything around you begins to rearrange itself in alignment with this higher vibration. People start to notice the shift, not because you announce it, but because your energy speaks before your words ever do. You start to live from your soul instead of your survival instincts. And in doing so, you stop trying to find meaning. You become it. Purpose turns pain into wisdom, waiting into preparation, and endings into evolution. When divine purpose awakens within you, you begin to walk differently. With calm confidence, gentle authority, and quiet joy, you no longer need to control outcomes because you trust that every step is guided. You no longer chase validation because you've found peace in your path. This is the highest form of power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to align. The power to move in harmony with your destiny, knowing that nothing truly meant for you can pass you by. And so you step forward, not as who the world told you to be, but as who you were created to become. You are no longer surviving life, you are serving its purpose. And in that sacred awakening, you finally understand. You were never waiting for a crown. You were the crown all along, for when divine purpose fully awakens, the woman within you doesn't just rise, she reigns effortlessly, gracefully, eternally. So, remember this. You are not becoming a queen, you are one. You've simply been asleep to your own power. Your journey isn't about finding your crown, but awakening to the truth that it was never lost. Walk in silence, walk in strength, walk in grace. For the world does not need another woman trying to be perfect. It needs a woman who finally remembers that she already is.